And now Mark Fisher will address the Mass GOP 2010 State Convention.
Thank you, Mike. If you like the way that Dave Kopex just spoke, I'd invite you to go to the Morrow website because he writes much better than he speaks. And he speaks very, very well. There's a press release that he did, maybe, was it 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, over a summer, and it's what got me to join Moderate, and it's what got me to run for governor. It's a great organization. Like Dave said, you don't have to join it, but please investigate it. It's worth your while. I'm here to talk about the 2010 State Convention on my behalf and also on behalf of Kamal Jain. Kamal Jain ran, for those of you who don't know, ran for a state auditor 4 years ago. He had an experience there at the convention, and I'm going to speak on his behalf about it. I know it very well, very much in detail, and I'll talk to you about that. So, going into this year's convention, my campaign wanted to know what happened 4 years ago so we could prepare as best we could for the convention. So before I met Kamal Jain, I was at an RTC meeting in Dudley, and there I met a small group, just 7 delegates that were at the convention 4 years ago. And the delegates there told me that their delegation of 7 voted 5 for Charlie Baker and 2 for Christy Myhouse, who was trying to run for governor at that time. That's how they voted. And actually, the person who was telling me this story was one of those 2 that voted for Christy Myhouse. However, somehow, when the votes got tallied, those 7 delegates from Dudley all voted for Charlie Baker and 0 for Christy Myhouse. So that was sort of an eye-opener for us. Then staff from the Christy Myhouse campaign told me that long after Christy had abandoned his campaign, he and his attorneys were able to finally see the tally sheets, and they said they had about 22% of the vote, and they only needed 15% of the vote. So we knew that the vote had been tampered, and that was a good thing to know about because it's what prepared us for this convention. But we also wanted to know what happened to Kamal. For those of you who were there, you probably heard that after the vote was taken, it was announced that he did not get his 15%. But what Kamal did, he and his legal team went to the Mass GOP and they asked for a recount. And they were allowed a recount. And the story that you probably know today is that after the recount, sure enough, Kamal got his 15%, and he was allowed on the ballot, and he ran in the primary for state auditor. Well, the story is, there's thousands and thousands of votes. So what if you missed 1 or 2 and 1 or 2 votes? That's how it went down. But here's the real story. After the initial vote, the number of total votes was known. So that when the recount was taken, they knew exactly how many votes were needed to get 15%. And when Kamal got that 15%, the Mass GOP said, "Do you want us to continue the recount?" And Kamal said, "Well, will I be on the ballot?" And they said, "Absolutely, you got your 15%. So Kamal was nice, and he said, "No, you can stop recounting, I'm on the primary ballot." He could have had 20%, perhaps 20 to 30%. We don't know that. So the story is that the Mass GOP, maybe 1 or 2 votes, a normal recount. That's not what happened. There were many more votes there for Kamal. Similar things that happened with the Dudley delegation. However, knowing all that, what did that do for us in preparing for the convention? There were 2 people that came to visit me from my hometown, Karen Polito, our Lieutenant Governor nominee, and Chanel Prunier, who's our state national committee woman. They both live in my hometown. Karen's my state rep for a long time. They came to my business 2 separate occasions, and they asked me not to run for governor. Unlike the Democrats, who want many people to run for offices and they love contested primaries, they came to talk me out of running for governor. Well, they didn't succeed. But when they came to talk me out of running for governor, I asked them something as well, and I didn't succeed. I told them what I knew about the delegation for Dudley and others and Kamal, and I asked them, "You guys are very high-ranking in the Mass GOP. Is there anything that you can do to assure me that this won't happen in 2014 at this year's state convention?" And they didn't have to think about it. They absolutely said, no, there's nothing we can do. These are high-ranking members of the Mass GOP. So this is what we knew going into the state convention. We knew about vote tampering, we knew about fraud, and then most importantly, we knew that when high-ranking officials, members of the Mass GOP, were asked if they could do anything to prevent this type of thing, they said no. We can see a pattern here. You'll see it here throughout the night. And it's time that we stop that. And that's why we're here tonight. So thank you, and look forward to talking to you about this again in the future.